Hey, just a really quick message. Stay tuned right to the very end after I say goodbye to Kat and you can hear her recite Ode to the Haggis by Robert Burns. You can now support the show through Patreon or by purchasing the new I Vike It and Saxon Forager merch. There's some really great designs, some of which were done by the fantastic Saxon storyteller. If you can't spare the money but still want to show your support, click the subscribe button. It really does help. Enjoy the episode, and I hope you like it. Hello and welcome back to Will I Vike It, and today it's another remote special because my guest is Wild Kat Foraging. I'm going to do this, but then I thought actually you might be on the other side of people's screens. She's somewhere.
Hi.
So welcome and thanks for doing the podcast.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Looking forward to it. I just wish I could be there to try the food.
Yes, we will come back to the food shortly because we've both prepared something, haven't we? So the idea of this one was to do a Burns Night special. And I thought, who's the best Scottish person to get on to talk about Burns Night?
Someone that doesn't like whiskey, never used to like haggis, and doesn't eat much shortbread. Hooray. But I do live in Burns country.
Shall we get into it by maybe you can tell people, in case they don't know already, what it is that you do at Wild Kat Foraging?
Yeah, so basically I just share this big part of my life. I've been foraging since I was a little girl, but very often I use those skills on expeditions out with the country, and at home it was just doing my own thing. But during lockdown I decided to share it with the wider world rather than just people in courses, and it was a really lovely thing, and it took off. And it's just a variety of what I forage, predominantly food, but also some medicinal uses, some craft uses, and I do quite a bit of historical foraging as well, though I'm not putting that out there quite so much at the moment.
That's fine. We don't have to go into the historical stuff.
I think talking about haggis and Burns, considering he was born in the 1700s, history's gonna come up a little bit today, I imagine.
Quite possibly. As I said to you before we started, I know a little bit about Burns Night, but not an awful lot. And I only know a small amount about haggises. I'm putting you on the spot now because I didn't warn you about this question, but what's the plural for haggis?
Oh, haggis-eye.
Haggis-eye. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What sort of animal is a haggis? I don't know.
It's generally considered a small furry creature, though I actually think there's more than one species. I think there's a mountain haggis and a lowland haggis. I believe the mountain haggis, they have different sized limbs to handle the steepness of the terrain. And the lowland haggis, they've got a thicker coat to withstand all the rain.
So you're up in Galloway, right?
Yeah, so I'm in Dumfries and Galloway, so Burns country. He was pretty much Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway. Apparently he lived in almost every single town and village going in the area.
What is it about Burns that makes people celebrate him?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but growing up, to be quite honest, growing up, I wasn't a massive fan of Burns. That's going to put the cat amongst the pigeons here, because I was kind of forced to do Burns recitals, and there was a local Burns society. It was very traditional, quite conservative. There was a lot of hierarchy and rules and regulations. In fact, my dad set up a McGonagall society to stir the pot. So I make McGonagall mushrooms now for my Burns supper. But a lot of that's changed. And I think Burns supper is something that people project their own identity onto. So I think it's moved away from just being about Rabbie Burns and more a celebration of all sorts of things Scottish or Scottish heritage. And locally, something that's happened that's really changed things is we have a big Burns supper, and that's all sorts of arts. It's using Burns as a springboard for celebrating all sorts of poetry and literature and artwork, and we get comedians in. We even have cabaret performances in. So it's really opened it up to appeal to a lot more people. But I think very much Burns Night is what you make of it. And it's lovely that it's celebrated all around the world.
Did you know how it started? Like what the idea was of its connection to haggis? I know the connection to haggis, but
I've got a few theories. that will stir the pot potentially as well. So sorry if I have done.
Controversial episode.
It could be, Haggis, Burns, Scottish identity, it could be. So Burns was born on the 25th of January, I believe it was, in 1759, I think. And,
yeah, I think that's what I read.
And so that's when we generally celebrate Burns. And he wrote this poem, Ode to Haggis, which I can recite. I might do at some point for you.
Nice.
And very often at the celebration, the haggis is presented, the ode to the haggis is spoken, and someone will cut the haggis and everyone enjoys their haggis meats and tatties. But what I'm curious about is if you look at different cultures around the world, I'm going to use Iceland as an example. They have a Thorabot, and the Thorabot is in January and February, generally, not all of the months. And at that, they have a dish called slapper. And sorry to my Icelandic friends or any viewers if I've mispronounced those. And that is a dish that's very similar to haggis, using a sheep's stomach. And that festival, it's not a Burns night, same time of year, but it's a midwinter festival. Thorasbot, it's to do with, I believe, a sort of deity of frost, the son of snow, about appeasing them with a sacrifice, and the slapper was a bit of a result of that sacrifice, potentially. I'm not an expert. So is Burns Night celebrated on the 25th of January because that's when Rabbie Burns was born, or is it celebrated because there was another festival that maybe predated that, or it became tradition to have the haggis, or it was a leaner time of the year, so maybe people saw the benefits of using things like liver and offal that's high in iron at that leaner time of year when maybe there's less nutrients available, less variety, or maybe just a bit more desperate and turning to using all parts of the animal. I don't know. This is all conjecture, but there's a lot of questions to be thrown up surrounding Burns Night and that time and tradition. So whether it's actually really truly a Scottish tradition or not, I don't know.
Well, I have read that potentially haggises weren't Scottish originally. There's some Roman dishes, and I think even Greek, where basically what they used to do is when they were out hunting, the offal doesn't keep very well. So they used to chop it up, season it, cover it in salt, shove it into a stomach, and it would keep for a few weeks so you could eat it later.
Interesting, yeah.
Not necessarily called haggis, but it's the same idea.
No, I could quite believe it. Although, like, a lot of what's in my blood is rebelling against the idea of haggis not being Scottish. From what I've done in my research, because I'm writing a book at the moment, and it looks at the connection between cultures and food and foraging. And so I've been looking a bit into the haggis. And I mean, it just seems that across cultures and throughout time, we've had a tendency to shove organs, so to speak, into sheep's stomachs or other animals' stomachs.
Yeah.
I should maybe rephrase that. But we have, we've used stomachs for carrying water. It's actually a very useful material. And so we've got the likes of what you've just described, which I didn't know about, and I'd like to learn more, or the slapper. Where sometimes with the slapper they would process it in a sort of way to have more of a preserving effect. And when I was involved in an expedition in Siberia, and they were using sheep's stomachs there for making cheeses, but also there was a Russian version of the haggis.
Right.
It tended to use brains in it as well, but once again, it was the same idea. Shove it all in the stomach, or make pouches out of the stomach, boil it for ages, and they've all got that mixture of some sort of flour, often rye or barley or oats, and something to spice it in there. And I mean, I looked up that Russian dish prior to coming and chatting to you, and what I find, it's at least 9th century. And our oldest record in the UK that's written of the haggis that I could find was 1400s, I believe. I'm sure you've come across the same thing. But in that one, it is referred to as a haggis or a haggis or a fossis or something like that in that book. And that was the earliest reference I could find in the UK, but it wasn't in Scotland. But then again, the boundaries for the country were different. Where I lived was part of Northumbria for a long time. And so there's that to take into consideration too. And I've also found reference to the origins of the word haggis potentially being Norse. And I think a rough translation of the word that's derived from would mean to hack.
Okay.
So the thinking was to hack the meat. Once again, I'm no expert, I'm forager.
It's all good. Neither am I. It's just an interest, exactly. I mean, I've read a few places. I didn't know about the word, but I have read, I can't remember who it was, but there was a Scot that claimed it was Viking. But I'm not really sure what the evidence for that would be. It's possible. Like you say, we've been doing it for a long time. People need food. They don't want to waste things for whatever reason.
And the stomach's a handy bag to cook things in. So
yes. So I had the joy of making one today. I say joy. It was an interesting experience. So I've eaten them before, but never made one. I couldn't get a stomach, so I've used what's called a bung. Ox bung is basically the very end of the intestine, so it's like the largest bit. Yeah, it's not the most pleasant smelling thing to do. I use some local goat, so I've got some goat pluck, which is usually heart, lungs, liver. I've chucked the kidneys in as well, and I couldn't get lungs, so actually there's no lungs in mine. Although an interesting side note, I don't know if you know, it's banned from being imported to America, I read as well.
What, haggis?
Yes,
or
because the FDA won't allow it to be imported because it contains lungs.
Oh my goodness, I could have a career in haggis smuggling.
Shall I reveal to everyone what my haggis looks like, and you can tell me whether it looks like what you'd expect a haggis to look like? I don't know.
I would love to see your haggis.
Da, 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 da. I should probably just pick it up, shouldn't I? It might still be hot because I did literally. It's okay.
It's that fresh. That looks like a haggis to me. That's
the bun, as I said, and then stuffed with all the goat. Now I tried to Vike it up a bit, me being me. So a lot of them contain things like mace, nutmeg, that kind of stuff. So I've left that out. I'd have to check my notes, but I did make up my own seasoning. So I don't even know if it's going to taste good. Right. Where's my haggis recipe? Yeah, so it's the pluck of the 2 goats. There's 4 teaspoons of pepper, 3 teaspoons of garlic salt, 2 coriander seed, 2 dried sage, 2 caraway, and then 2 chopped onions, a packet of suet, which is about 240 grams, and 500 grams of oats.
Nice.
It's a pretty standard recipe apart from the seasoning, but I thought without the mace or whatever to lift it up, and a nutmeg, I thought, what can I use that they had? So that's what I've got, and I'm serving it with a neep.
A turnip.
Which I have roasted, so you can see it splitting. Nice. And yeah, I can even peel it, look. And so that'll be my version of your neeps and tatties, as I believe you do up there.
Yes, and which they also generally do with slacker as well. So yeah, though obviously the tatties, I mean, we're both being actors, we're both Viking being actors, we know that one, don't we?
Yeah. So I've stuck with the neep, and I thought rather than mash it, I'll just roast it up, which is quite a nice way of doing it. It's like a jacket potato, but sweeter.
Oh, yeah. I like them salt baked as well. And it's curious that now there's a challenge, eating that haggis without a fork.
Well, as I'm a Saxon,
Oh, you get one, yeah. Very
If I'm wealthy
fancy.
enough, yes, possibly we could have a go. A spoon would work for a haggis, though.
It's very fitting though that you have got a very rich, expensive fork though, because some of the spices that you've used, I think, though they were available, they weren't right on your doorstep getting grown. They'd be imported. So I think your haggis would be quite a
It's a
rich
fancy haggis.
fancy haggis.
I'm a fancy Saxon.
You're a fancy Saxon with your Saxon headwear right now.
Oh yes, I come from the future.
I also
So you,
made haggis.
yeah.
And I also tried to edit it a little bit to the Viking time period.
Okay.
Though not so much with my McGonagall mushroom sauce and with my dad, but with the rest of it. So I don't know if you're wanting to see the Wild Kat Foraged haggis.
Now, if this is the one you've posted online before, then I already know what it looks like. It's not. This is a
It's
new
not.
one.
I did make that one,
Ooh,
which
okay.
I've presented it rather boringly, but that's that one here. And
Okay, yeah.
essentially the same mixture, but this one's baked rather than
Yeah.
boiled. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a total cheat. My haggis has no meat in it whatsoever, because
I'm sure some people will be happy with that decision.
yeah, and also it's easier to forage mushrooms for me than to like rugby tackle a sheep and deal with all that. But I thought, no, that's cheating. I need to try something different anyway, so I thought I'd create a version that was also boiled, that didn't have suet, that didn't have those nice things to hold it together. And I have created this monstrosity.
Ooh.
And instead of, well, I can't have patties anyway, so I've done parsnips. Like
Parsnips, nice. I like a parsnip.
And my McGonagall mushroom sauce.
Lovely.
So
So you want to reveal what's in it, or is that secret?
Yeah, I want to tell you what's in it because I think it's very exciting. So the haggis itself, I've used ingredients that would predominantly be available. There's a mixture of barley in there, which helps it keep this shape, along with oats, and we've got oyster mushrooms in there, which are available at this time of year. Went out and foraged them in the nearby woods. And oyster mushrooms are just amazing. I could go on an absolute tangent about them and winter mushrooms. I've got velvet shanks in there as well, another winter fungi. And I've got the rosettes, this little limp bit of greenery.
Yeah.
An indication of the cuckoo flower that's in there to add a pepperiness. I've chucked a bunch of hogweed seeds in there. They've got sort of almost cardamom-y spice to them. But it needed quite a lot for being boiled, so I don't think they'll.
Can I ask you a slight detour on that one?
Yeah.
About the hogweed seed, because I heard recently that they crossbreed with giant hogweed, and so potentially the seeds of hogweed can be dangerous.
So the main problem with the giant hogweed in particular is the effect that it can have on your skin, and it can make your skin really, really photosensitive. Okay. I have to look into the crossbreeding with the giant hogweed. I'm really lucky where I live. Very rarely see giant hogweed. Enough by the motorways to be able to show the differences, but I'd have to look into the crossover. I think the key thing there is being able to really identify your common hogweed and your giant hogweed. And if you're somewhere like me where you're lucky to have very little of the giant hogweed, it gives you a really good opportunity to get to know the whole plant. But with the hogweed, I wouldn't necessarily class it as a beginner foraging plant because it's in the carrot family, and that's where we've got some of our most deadly plants, like hemlock, water-dropwort, and hemlock, and you know all that as well. But that's curious. I'm gonna try and read up on that, or like pick your brains about that later, because I hadn't.
It's only something I heard recently. But yeah, I don't know if the evidence is to back that up, or whether it's just people scaring people from foraging it, being over cautious. I know you have to be cautious, but yeah, I don't know what the evidence is that they're crossbreeding, or if they even can. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm curious. But the common hogweed seed itself, if you are confident in your identification and you try a little bit, it has got an amazing taste. And if you forage it green, and then allow it to dry out, rather than foraging it when it dries out and puts you in a situation. And this is what I find fascinating about foraging, is it's such a big topic that goes all over the world, all throughout history. You can never master it. There's always new things to discover and explore. And what I've been fascinated by is our own native spices. Because if we look at Viking, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here. If we look at Viking and Anglo-Saxon times and stuff, we get quite a variety of spices available to us. But a fair few of them aren't necessarily native, or we were lucky and the Romans brought them in, but they might not have made it all the way up here or handled the weather. So we see things like pepper and things like cumin, and we've actually, or things like cloves in medieval times, we've actually got our own native versions of these plants or seeds or whatever, in that it's not the same species, but we have our own native equivalent flavors. So things like cumin from the hogweed, a clove flavor from wood avens, which is also known as clove root. We have fungi that taste like curry. Like it's just, and we have a wonderful plant called arsnart, that has a real chili, peppery kind of taste to it. And we have the peppery elite, which is like Szechuan pepper. It's amazing. And I want to explore how much these plants were potentially used in history, and if there's any chance that they sort of disappeared from our knowledge because these imported spices became a status symbol. And I think there's a lot of curiosity there, and I think we can be very quick to say, oh no, they definitely didn't have that, but they had this quite expensive thing that was imported and used it all the time. Whereas I think we should actually be asking a lot of questions, and I think those questions should be based around what was the cultural context at the time, and what was available, what plants were native and abundant at the time. And I think if we start doing that, we might find within our own country's culture or our own history, that the food was a lot more varied, or the nutrients were a lot more varied. I don't know. I just think we should question things and explore. That was a tangent from the haggis. My haggis is my attempt to explore.
Well, I distracted you by asking about the hogweed.
It's easily done.
So we should probably go back to what was in your recipe, because people are probably still wondering. We got to hogweed.
So I'll just recap again then. So a mixture of barley, of oats, of cuckoo flour, bitter cress, some hogweed seeds in there. Predominantly, the star of the show is the oyster mushroom, chopped up really, really fine. Some velvet shanks in there as well. Some oats and barley. That's kind of about it. I did add a Marmite to it, just for the flavour. I'm taking this and feeding my mum later, and I wanted to see what it would do. Not a historically accurate ingredient.
Did they have Marmite?
And did they love it or hate it? And a little bit of molasses in there as well, because I didn't have confidence it would stay together. But I take that out in the next recipe, because it's formed a really good, like, pudding almost. And I cooked it in a bit of linen.
Have you tasted it yet?
No, that's going to be the big reveal. And the McGonagall mushroom sauce, because I think it's worth a mention. It's not authentic at all. It's a mixture of wood ears, whiskey, and cream and peppercorns. But what's brilliant is the wood ear, because I had some dried ones I collected earlier in the year. They so readily absorb everything. So what you do with them is you take the wood ear and you rehydrate them in a whiskey and water mix. You want to mix it because they're really thirsty, and then they'll swell up and get really floppy, a sign of drunkenness if ever there was one. And that's when you chop them up finely, and you just make a sort of pepper cream peppercorn sauce like we normally would and chuck them in. But I can't vouch that all the alcohol would be cooked off because it's within the mushrooms. And any leftover whiskey woodier mushrooms are really good dipped in chocolate. So,
Really?
yeah, also not authentic. But
That's
could
an
make a nice
interesting, like a sweet savoury. Is that all?
It's yeah, it's more sweet than anything. I mean, the wood years, some folk think they've got a strong taste. I've never found them to have a strong taste, but they've got that sort of gelatinous texture when they fill up. And it's just really good for any kind of booze. I've made a sort of chocolate Jaffa cake type thing with them, filled with an orange liqueur dipped in chocolate. They're great for that sort of thing. So you could have some burnt night chocolates as well.
And you already told me you don't like whiskey as a truce.
You revealed the secret.
Sorry, I'll cut this bit. But
I'm working on it.
My foraging's a bit safer than yours because I don't particularly know my mushrooms, I must admit. Despite my online name, I only forage a little bit.
We shall go foraging for mushrooms together sometime.
So I've got some blackberry whiskey.
Now that I would try.
It's very nice. Yeah, we'll have to meet up at some point. We keep saying it. But you live a long way away.
Yeah, like 8 hours away or something like that. But at some point we will.
I came up there a long time ago, probably in about, I don't know, probably about 15 years ago now.
Oh, right.
And stayed in a caravan site and went around the Galloway forests. And I think it was around the time it was awarded Dark Sky Award.
Oh, that is.
Does that ring any bells? Yeah. Which is what drew our attention to it. And we're like, oh, we'll go up there. And you had red kites had just been reintroduced.
You went when they were introduced.
They were starting to establish more. So I've digressed again. We've gone back from our haggis talk to red kites.
I know. Is that because you're secretly scared to try your haggis? Or
no, I've had haggis before. There's nothing in it. Well, I say there's nothing I don't like. I don't really like kidneys. I've made that quite publicly known. But I ate them. I did an episode at a goat farm, and she deliberately served me kidneys, knowing that I'd said I don't like them. Yeah, but they're. I mean, 4 kidneys in. I've made 5 of these.
Wow.
So I probably won't taste the kidney. It's going to be mostly liver and oats. The hearts are obviously in there too, but I don't mind eating heart. So I can try it. Yeah.
I'm personally starving, so I'm well up for trying mine.
Right. I'm going to jump down from my seat. Shall I? There you go. Look, you can see the unveiling of the haggis. Now, I believe it was supposed to recite the ode to the haggis now, right?
Yes, the ode to the haggis.
I don't know.
I will do at a separate time when I've got it in front of me. But yeah.
So we'll pretend we've just done that.
And you need to stab it. Give it a proper stab and gash open its guts.
Lovely. Oh.
Lengthwise. Ooh, that looks distinctly haggis-y. Shall I do mine?
It smells. All right. So I should have cut it the other way, so I failed. Do you want me to go and cook another one?
Well, you've got 5.
I'm planning to use these at events this year.
How are you going to keep them?
I'll freeze them.
Oh, okay.
They weren't cooked, but the offal was cooked and then blended. But potentially I could freeze them and cook them. Be a quick thing to do at a show. Boil them up.
Well, if we ever do go to one of the same shows together, I'd love to try it, given doing this podcast. And I could always try and whip up another one of mine. Yeah. So that's the inside of my haggis.
Looks almost like a cake from here.
Oh, does it?
Have you made it
with haggis? Cake or haggis? All right, let's give this one a go. Haggis.
All right, should we go at the same time? It's like a bowl. Look, I can just.
I'm having spoon issues. Hang on. Oh wait, there's no way I can fit that in my mouth.
Ooh,
I
okay.
might want to edit that bit out. Okay.
The fork's not
Cheers.
ideal for this, but we'll dink it or sink it, as they say. That's actually all right.
Oh, mine tastes like haggis. It's got no offal in it at all, and it tastes like. Oh, that's pretty good.
So it tastes like an actual haggis.
Mm.
That's genius if you've managed that.
Well, the oyster mushrooms, they're a species that I use to make a lot of like fake steaks and fake meats and stuff. I don't know if you've seen before. I do like barbecue oyster mushroom steaks and five spice and stuff. And it's mostly full of oyster mushrooms. And to be honest, I don't think haggis tastes particularly meaty anyway. It's more peppery and spice.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of pepper from this one. It's quite nice, actually, to be honest. That's I could definitely eat more of this. I was going to make a terrible joke. I was going to say, I can't eat this. It tastes awful.
Oh, the woodier whiskey sauce is lovely. I do say so myself.
I'm going to try a bit of my turnip as well, as is tradition. That haggis is actually quite spicy, considering there's 4 teaspoons of pepper for nearly 3 kgs of other ingredients.
It's really come through, has it?
It's quite, peppery, spicy. I don't know if you'll see. So I did one of the episodes that I told you I lost. We cooked turnips in the fire. And these were done in the oven, but you see they go really soft and gooey and a bit like a sweet jacket potato.
Lovely. Well, it's my part.
I don't have any tatties, as we said. They're not Viking. But I do have whiskey.
Oh, I'm quite jealous. Even though I don't like whiskey, the blackberry. I'm good.
I might, if I've got some spare, I'll try and send you some.
That'd be fantastic.
Because I think I've got some more of these dinky bottles, so they're only sort of a couple of shots, I guess. But
and the slow gin that you sent me a couple of years ago, or whenever it was really, really good. So thank you.
Nice. Welcome. That was when you had your accident too, wasn't it? It survived a car crash.
It did survive a car crash, yes. It was
not to divert. Yeah.
And I think it became one of the first things I drank after said car crash. So have you tried that whiskey yet?
Yes.
Nice. Flange.
It's delicious. I made a Forager's rum as well, which is just made throughout the year. Get a big rum pot or a jar, and you chuck in whatever you've got whenever you've got it. And you just make sure you keep the rum topped up. So it's always submerged, and you add a bit of sugar every time you add some more fruit. So I couldn't tell you what's in it because it's just kind of done. As soon as you get fruits coming from the garden or wild fruits, whatever you've got, just gets chucked in.
How beautiful is that though? It's an actual story of the years foraging or fishing it.
Really nice.
Rum form. I'm up for rum. I'm always up for rum. I made a bonfire.
I'll try and send you one of those.
Oh, I'm liking this. Shall we just keep chatting until you commit to sending me all your different foods? I've been watching all the status updates with your different food recipes. So.
Oh, there's been quite a lot lately because of the other episode I did at the ATC with the manager where we just drank.
Yeah.
It was actually,
I'll happily do one of those episodes with you sometime. But no.
So I'm just looking on my phone because I remember I wrote some other facts down that I wanted to bring up. So yes, I mentioned that they were banned. Guinness World Record. Do you know that one? For the largest haggis.
Oh dear, I dread to think.
So it was made by Halls of Scotland in 2014. so fairly recently. 1,010 kgs.
What did they put it in?
It's 2.8 meters long.
What stomach did they use? What?
The record doesn't specify what it was. I don't know.
Amazing. An illegally imported elephant stomach. No, I'm not. I don't think it was. I'm not gonna get myself into some sort of legal dispute at all.
It was on the Guinness World Records website. So they only tell you the facts. They don't tell you what was in it. I'm assuming it was authentic haggis if it's the world record. So it must have been some. Maybe they sewed several together.
Oh yeah, you could do that, I suppose.
Or I mean, if the bung that I've used is an intestine, maybe they just kept it because the intestines are long, aren't they?
That would be a very long haggis.
It's 2.8 meters. It's pretty
I'm having
long.
an inferiority complex now about mine.
Have you heard about haggis hurling?
Yes, I have. But
there's a record for that too.
What's that? How far?
217 feet.
Jeez, oh. I'm guessing that wasn't the 2.5 or whatever meter long haggis, that one. Like a javelin.
God, that would be difficult to throw, wouldn't it?
To be fair, I reckon a haggis could knock anyone out if thrown hard enough. I reckon they're
definitely. They're quite dense once they're cooked, aren't they?
Yeah, you could proper clobber someone with a haggis. I can see you like at a show now on the battlefield, just coming armed with your 5 haggises. Launching them.
So I've come back to more, so people can probably make their own judgment of whether I Vike it or not. But I don't think the fork works very well. But
I'm having spoon issues. Maybe I just need to go in with a bare hand.
There's Scottish people not just going with their teeth and just.
Oh, dearie me, look at this cultural slander going on.
Who needs knives?
No. I'm quite happy with that. I thought because of the spices that I use, like with the plants, because it was boiled to death, I thought that I maybe would lose a lot of that flavour, but I'm really, really surprised it contained every much as the roast one that I've used. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually giving it to my mum later on, my wee mum, and maybe if I can rope some friends in to try it and see what they think. It's just amazing what can be done with a bunch of wild ingredients and molasses and Marmite. But I don't think it needs that. So,
you're gonna have to make it again now to find out.
I will. I'll have to make it again. And what I'll do is I'll make it again. I'll try and take some nice wee photos of it, and I'll pop the recipe up on my Wild Kat Foraging socials on Facebook and Instagram. So it's probably going in the book as well once I refine it a bit more. And people can look at it and see what they think for themselves.
I can see why they drink whiskey with it.
I do try with the whiskey. I like to cook with whiskey, and I do flavour whiskey. I quite like it then. And I keep going into distilleries to try and like it, but I'm just not there yet, I'm afraid.
It took me a while.
But I'll happily try any that you send through the post.
I'm making a terrible mash.
I'm wishing I could actually try your haggis.
Well, I wonder how I can send one. I've got 5 or 4 now. Might be able to ship it.
I think it may just have to be the year where we actually meet up in real life at a show.
Yeah.
I'm going to be traveling about a lot more this year, and I might actually go south a couple of times. which is not that common for me.
I'm coming up to Moorforge at Easter, which is 90% of the way to you, I think.
Oh
Kind
yeah,
of across the water.
That could be a winner, and I'm a lot more free to move about now. So yeah.
And your mate Hamish is coming too.
Yes, I believe you said.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
So
maybe
if you fancy popping along,
I'd love that. I'll bring a vegetarian foraged haggis or some other foraging goodies or some fish goodies or something.
we can record in person.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, I've got plans with Hamish, so maybe we'll do something together.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah,
make him some Pictish food or something.
I'm sure he would love that. Some Pictish jelly beans.
I know nothing about Pictish food, so I'd have to do some research, but I've got till April, so we might be able to do something.
I think this is something we should have a chat about another time as well.
Yes. We'll come back to it.
Looking into Pictish stuff for a while now, so I think, yeah, we should have a wee chat.
We'll come back to that one then. So you're in the Glasgow Vikings group?
So I'm kind of in both Glasgow and Galloway.
I didn't know there was a Galloway group actually.
This is what the shield's for. I'll go anywhere that they'll have me, to be quite honest. I've been lucky to have hooked up with like some Vikings in Iceland and Poland and near Finland and stuff. And people are always happy to be fed, and I'm happy to feed people and fight.
How long have you done the Vikings reenactment side of things?
You know, I was trying to work that out earlier on today, and it's over a decade at least. But I've always had an interest in that aspect of history. I mean, as a little girl, I was kind of fascinated by either fantasy stories or mythology, Celtic mythology, Viking mythology, and I had a real interest in Indigenous people around the world, and then I realised we had our own equivalent as well. And yeah, met a blacksmith in a local woodland who was setting up a local group, and I went from there. And it's been a fantastic thing to be involved in. It's been a great platform actually for sharing a lot of my foraging stuff and some of my bushcraft stuff as well. Whereas prior to that, my knowledge was just courses that people could pay a certain amount of money to go on, a couple of hundred quid or whatever, which is fine, but not necessarily accessible to everyone. And I want to share this with everyone possible. So being involved in a reenactment society has really allowed me to do that with the general public and with other reenactors. Lovely. Yeah,
it's a good hobby, I think.
I've met yourself through it, if not in real life.
I don't know if we met through that, because I think I followed your page. So I think it's independent of the reenactment thing, I think.
Well, there you go. Oh, well, we don't need something.
All right, so there's 3 questions that anyone that's watched already will know are coming. I ask everybody. And the first one is, if you had an unlimited budget, what would be your dream project?
That is a very, very difficult question, because I have 1,000,001 things in my mind that I'd like to do. In terms of like from the historical foot and the reenactment perspective, I'm hoping no one will steal this. I would love to set up and fund and document an expedition from the time period at different times of the year, traveling a river system or along the coast, either Viking time period or like even going right back to the Mesolithic or something like that. There's finds on the Isle of Rum, which I love, of over 8,000 years old, and exploring the food and what's available at the time, and something like really hardcore, because I love my wild camping and I love my mountaineering as well. It'd be cool to document that. Or my background was actually in conservation expeditions from when I was really young. It started with like studying snow leopard populations in Siberia. It would be really, really cool to revisit a lot of the countries that I've worked and volunteered in, but really looking at food traditions there, and to explore new countries as well, looking at the food and foraging traditions, particularly regarding like festivals and celebrations throughout the year, if that makes sense. So yeah, some sort of big expedition, film epic.
Which we don't have to go into actually, but I should have asked you about that earlier, your expeditions and stuff. We didn't cover any of that. Maybe that'll be for another episode.
Yeah, if you want, people are welcome to talk with me about them whenever they want. I was very lucky. I got involved on a pretty extreme expedition from a young age, and then went elsewhere, out to the Amazon. I worked with wolves in America as well, and latterly did a lot more in South Africa. And a bit of a sideline in all of them is I met lots of very interesting people, and sometimes some indigenous populations, indigenous people as well, and got to explore a lot of traditional food and ways of preserving and all sorts of things. What I didn't do was write things down. So that's why I'd like to go back and revisit a lot and write things down at that time.
Make an interesting book.
Another one. Another one in the pipeline.
You need that unlimited budget then.
Yeah, that unlimited budget. Yeah, publishing books would be another good thing too. Yeah, a few things.
So the next question is, do you think you could survive on a Viking age diet?
Yeah, I think I could. Well, I've kind of actually, I don't know if you know this, I've experimented with it for a couple of months at a time, at different time periods in the year. I've not done a full year yet because life just gets in the way. There is a fantastic forager called Monica Wild, who has spent a year living purely off of wild food. And I think, I don't know her personally, but I'd highly recommend checking it out. But yeah, I've experimented with it. I've lived on expedition rations and stuff. I think I could. I'd miss like all the creative potential some modern ingredients have brought us. But
that leads into the next question, doesn't it? So you can go straight into that one, which is there any food that you'd miss on a Viking age diet?
Food I'd miss? You know what? People aren't going to believe this, but I don't think so. I think because of the expeditions, like I have been on rations. Normally when I'm on a certain diet for like 2 weeks, I'm not interested in anything else. And a genuinely significant amount of the food I eat is foraged. I mean, I'd be inclined to say chocolate, but if I don't have it for a week or two, I'm not bothered. Maybe coffee when I desperately need woken up, but nettle seeds kind of do the same job for me. I don't know. I'd miss other things. I'd miss our medicine. I'd miss decent grass and pockets, and
but not food.
No, I think I'd probably relish the challenge to begin with. I think I might miss the sort of availability of like berries out of season. Stuff like that. It was a bit of a ramble. You can tell I need a coffee.
I actually don't know. Are you a vegetarian? Because you eat mostly forage stuff, right?
Mostly forage stuff. I also I eat roadkill, so that's where most of my meat comes from. I was very lucky. A lovely forager called Haggis taught me a little bit about roadkill foraging on some previous workshops in the distant past, and I've looked into it a bit more. So being able to identify what you can and can't eat, it's not as shocking as people think. And I think it's a real way to honour the animal. It's not just a carcass rotting at the side of the road. You know, someone's taking it away and taking the time. It takes a lot of time to butcher it, and I'll take the skin and I'll tan the skin as well sometimes, and it's predominantly deer and bird. I'm not gone as far as other animals, and the results can be very, very tasty. So
It kind of fits
Long
in. It's an
answer.
extension of your foraging, isn't it? Just foraging the carcass.
Yeah.
That should be the name of a book.
Oh, written
Foraging
by
the
a publisher.
carcass.
I'm basically just tight and like free food. No, I'm not. That's not the reason I do it.
There's nothing wrong with eating free food if you can get it. You know, it's why wouldn't you?
I think foraging, I mean, for me, and I guess we haven't really covered this yet, why I got into the foraging. And for me, it really does stem from a love of the wild and a passion for the wild and wanting to protect it. That's why I was going off and doing my conservation expedition. I had a period where I was unwell and I thought, oh, I'm having to do stuff closer to home. This was in the distant past. Got into bushcraft instruction and then realised that, well, we can kind of just focus on foraging in itself. And it's such a great way to connect people to the environment around them. And I try to teach it in a way that's not just thinking of these plants as a resource and stripping them. I try and teach it in a mindful way and a way that just allows people to really get something other than just food out of the process. And food is so intrinsic to who we are as people. And it's involved in every celebration throughout the world, generally speaking, or certainly many. It's a big part of cultural identity. It's a part of crossing barriers and borders. And yeah, there's quite a lot to it. Nothing at all at the same time. But yeah, it's a great way to build that connection.
Yeah, I think if people foraged more, then they'd probably respect the environment more as well, because you're taking your food from that same source. So they kind of go hand in hand, don't they?
I hope so. And there's a bit of a mindful element to it as well, because all of a sudden you're walking and you have to walk slow to forage, don't you? I mean, you know this. And especially with fungi and stuff, like you're searching and you have to take your time and you're suddenly focusing on smaller things and it gives you, being out and about gives you space to deal with whatever's going on in your head. And yeah, it's just a really useful thing for people to do in a respectful way.
Awesome. And
probably a lot more variety of nutrients if you graze lots of different.
Yeah, and more seasonal eating as well, which is what they would have done historically. It's probably better for us to be not eating the same things week in, week out.
Yeah, and a responsibility for what you're eating as well. Yeah, there's all sorts of elements to it.
So if anyone wants to follow you that doesn't already.
So just look up Wild Kat Foraging, Kat with a K, and Kat, or Kathryn Milligan's daughter, when I'm a reenactor. And it's Wild Kat Foraging on Facebook and Wild Kat Foraging on Instagram. Feel free to get in touch with me there. Best place at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.
I will stop the record. And thanks everyone for watching, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Ode to a Haggis. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain o' the pidden race, aboon them a' ye tak your place, paints tripe a firm. Well, are ye worthy o' a grace, as lang's me earn? The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill, your pin wad help to mend a mill in times of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife see rustic labour dicht and cut you up with ready slip, trenching your gushing entrails bricht like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking, rich. Then, horn for horn, they stretch and strive, deal take the hindmost on they drive, till all their wheel-swalled kites belly are bent like drums. The old good man mayst like to ride, the thank-it hums. Is there the hour his French ragout, or olio that would staw a sow, or fricassee would make her spew wi' perfect scunner, looks down with sneering, scornful view on sick o' dinner. Poor devil, see him out as trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a good whiplash, his knee a nip, through bloody flood or field to dash. Oh, how unfit! But mark the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread. Clap in his wally knee a blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sned like taps of thistles. Ye powers what mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae skinking ware that jops and luggies, but if you wish her grateful prayer, dear a haggis.